All right. So the last, when do you need structure or graph question is, and you actually you kind of alluded to this a minute ago, but how do business people actually ask for this? Because never, ever in the history of C-levels has a CEO gone, we need graph. They say something completely different typically.
What my customers say is fix the search.
Yeah.
People can't find stuff.
Or they say, make it like Google.
Or make, which is, yeah.
It's the same thing.
And they often say one, then immediately the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, fix the search. Make it like Google.
Right.
Make it like Google. Go fix it. So, so what I often found is that they think that it's, there's a box and you enter a few words and then the answer comes up.
Magic. And
that's what it feels like that's the way that Google makes it feel.
Yeah.
And Google makes it feel like that through graph. They use a graph to make it feel that way. And so the solution often includes graph. And so as I think we've said several times, I'm not saying delete all your old databases and replace them with graph databases.
Right.
This is about using graph as a way to scale your ability to bring people the right information for their context. Graphs are super good at context. We even have this whole thing called a context graph now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
want to define that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about knowledge and knowledge capture.
Yeah.
So when we're talking to, and this is super relevant for AI. So if you imagine that the knowledge management dream was, we have a meeting, we have a bunch of ideas, a bunch of decisions were made, the hows and whys and whos of those decisions and the facts will all be captured, and then the next time someone sits down to have a meeting, they'll be able to take advantage of that knowledge and use it for their processes and on and on and on. So that's been extremely hard to capture.
Impossible.
It's impossible to capture because no one's going to sit there. You would have to have 3 people capturing all the knowledge in real time during the meetings.
And then there would be things that would overlap and conflict, and it would never work.
It would never work. So so what we have now is we have an AI who can transcribe the whole meeting, synthesize that into the key decisions.
Yep.
Capture all the things that were mentioned, capture everyone who was there, go into the meeting calendar invite and record that and make sure that it matches up against the actual human beings. So we've captured the results of the meeting. And now we have the ability with Graph and AI to connect it to other meetings and go, okay, well, these 5 meetings have all been wrestling with the same business problem. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should have a feature that addresses that. Or maybe we should resolve this problem or whatever the conclusion is. And then when you bring AI into it, you're interacting with AI as an extension of your workforce. Mm-hmm. You've got these digital agents who are going off and solving problems. Mm-hmm. And they're going to fail 30% of the time. And they're going to take decisions. And then they write down, if you paid attention to the more complex AIs, you can see them doing their quote unquote thinking.
Yeah.
And they have this little log. Well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to look here. I'm going to try that, etc. So they're generating that same stuff that humans do, like in a meeting when they're working through a problem. And so a context graph is a graph that captures all the context of how the agent needs to do their job. It captures what they do, how well they do that, and their failure rates and what problems they came across. And this is a term that's a bit fluid right now because it's a very new term. As far as I'm concerned, that should also be a back and forth loop with real humans. Like, it shouldn't just be for AIs. Mm-hmm. Your AIs should be taking advantage of, we had a Slack discussion and the manager said, give this client a discount. Or, that's a bug, but don't put that in the documentation. We don't want to publish that. So all that business knowledge and context should be available to AIs, and you're going to have a positive feedback loop of the AIs doing things and humans doing things and them learning from each other. And it's the graph that stitches all those processes together to support business operations, content operations, product development, and so on.
Got it. Yeah. And so I'm also going to offer a definition of a context graph because I think I have a simpler one, although I agree with everything you said. And I think it's really when somebody wants to start to understand the the intricacies of how, why, and where. That's really critical information. A context graph is effectively a log.
Complex log, yeah.
Yeah, it's a complex log.
Complex log.
It's a log with a lot of other things. But at the end of the day, like, it is a log. Now, why a graph, right? So like you think log and you think, oh, okay, well, that's
Like a
list.
running document. Yeah.
Right, yeah, it's obviously a list. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, like, it is still a list. But because the list has the ability to have relationships to, oh, we did this because of this policy, right? So like, if you look at how some of this stuff is structured, you'll have a log entry in the context graph that is, it could be, doesn't have to be, but it could be natural language. I gave a discount to Patrick because blah, right? And in that sentence, the discount could have a link to a discount policy. Like, literally, that text could be wrapped with a piece of a relationship that goes off to that policy.
Yeah.
Patrick could have wrapping there that goes off to the account owner for, or actually probably I guess it would be the contact person, primary contact for that account. And then the because could be a link to an issue in the issue system where there was an SLA breach, right? And because you have a flexible ability to create those relationships, that's the benefit of keeping that in a graph versus Notebook plus, right?
Yeah. Because the point of the graph, and so we're trying to come, the point of this, I think, episode is, how do you know you need a graph, or when should you think about graph? I don't want to give the impression you need to have all of these problems. Like,
No.
you don't want to, like, you want to have an AI context graph, that's why you need graph. Any of these problems,
I think that's actually an important point here, is that you will have multiple. Like, it's not one graph to rule them all either. Like, your context graph is not the same as your as the graph you're going to use to power your enterprise search.
Your product graph will not be the same as your cuisines graph.
Right.
So like I've got exactly the situation right now with large iconic enterprise brand. There's graph over here, and then there's graph over here, and the second graph is getting flack from the first one, going, "We already have a graph. What are you doing?"
Right.
Which is as dumb as saying, "We already have a database. Why are you creating a second one?" Like, it's.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
But like, that is the state of where things are in the industry, is that people see a graph as like, this is our graph. It's a proper noun, as opposed to like, it's a tool.
It's a tool. It's a repository, part of our stack.
Right.
Okay, so I think that was awesome. There's I think the only thing we didn't mention was personalization.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the places, and if we kind of loop back to like trying to cap this off with, when you are in seat and you're being asked either directly or through the process of goals being set that come down through the organization, like how to listen for when graph or structure or these types of things are some of the tools you use to accomplish the things that are being asked for by the organization, by upper management. Personalization is definitely one of the things that's on the list, right? So in many circumstances, when an executive or a stakeholder says, fix the search, really what they're asking for is a set of technologies that include graph. When it comes to personalization has a wide, in my view, you can give your own answer to this, has a wide range of different ways things can be implemented. It can include graph. Like, I think a great example of like graph only personalization is probably Amazon. So, under the hood, I don't know what they use to store the individual products. If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably some kind of SQL, because it wouldn't really make sense to put anything else. And then you use graph to pull all those things together. But like inside of each product, are you going to personalize it to the audience? Probably not. I mean, I don't see a compelling reason to do that. So that would be like graph only personalization in my definition. But when you're thinking
so what are they using the graph to personalize then?
The recommendations, the connections. But so like, I'm on this thing. Maybe you would also like similar, people also bought based on your other searches. Like those are all relationships, right? So it's literally relationships between, I would say, static assets.
Once you get to the product, there's nothing else going on. But
Right, exactly.
well, sorry, the product is only the top quarter of the page. Everything below that becomes recommendations again.
Yeah. So like the experience, but the product, the primary object, is not being modified based
Within the object. Like my batteries don't have different features according to who I am.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everything else around the battery is being customized for me.
So then I would say, like, if you're looking at object level or maybe like structured content only personalization, this is when like I'm getting a different page based on who I am or what my context is. An example of that would be, so like one of our customers is a laundry machine manufacturer, and you sell practically the same laundry machine in the US as you do in Spain, but the power outlets are different here, and also this language is different. So when I get the PDF for installing a laundry machine, same model, in the US versus in Spain, the pictures in it are going to be personalized to me. They're going to show European power outlets, and it's going to be written in Spanish. There's no graph there, right? Like nobody's using graph to personalize that experience. So there's different technologies that come into personalization, and knowing what form of personalized content or experience you need to show to somebody is a major part of being able to select the technologies that will then provide you that experience.
I've got one last quick example, which I just thought of, which is I think a really interesting one for certain clients. I don't know how many people will be seeing themselves in this example, but if you're trying to provide people a solution, like if, for example, if you're providing documentation for a complex solution builder, I got a bunch of documentation and I read that to put together my enterprise server stack, or like I'm putting together a bunch of modules to make a microchip, or like I've got a bunch of clients who are in this situation. But I'm going to use the recipe example again. So let's say I'm a supermarket, to make this easy for people to understand. I'm a supermarket. I've got products. You can cook things with those products. You can cook all sorts of things with those products. Hugely customizable and recombinable. So, but if you think about how my database usually is, I've got the products, their descriptions, their prices, their weight, etc., the ingredients. Then I might have some recipes. If the thing that the user wants is a meal plan, like what do I buy to be able to serve my 5 children and their different dietary needs throughout a week? If meal plan doesn't exist in the database, it's not it's not a product, it's not a recipe, it's not ingredients, it's not sustainability statements. So sometimes you have this situation where you need a blank concept that the user can sort of fill out and say, this is a complex structure that's going to be, that I need to sort of navigate, saying I have these requirements and I want to fill in the blanks and eventually get to products.
Yeah.
That can work very nicely with a graph, because you might not have a repository that has that sort of empty template of a solution.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly common. And I have clients all over the place where the user has to have like a Word document of like their requirements, and then they're copying and pasting links and figuring out how to build a solution with these lookup repositories, because no one has said, what are they actually trying to make with these things we sell? So graph can be the place where you give them an empty shell of the right shape, and then they start to fill it out themselves. If that sounds familiar to you, then the graph might be a thing to look at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Get another beer and get into the philosophy of this.
I love it.
Cool.